What is going on, guys? This is obviously Jordan here, back again with another Opinion Corner episode. This is going to be episode 1, season 2 of Opinion Corner, so thank you guys. I had a very, very positive response to season 1. I didn't actually know where I was going to take it. I always had ideas of like doing more videos like this, but I never really knew how to angle it. So thanks for everyone for their positive responses and everything I got for that. And now, let's kick it off by talking about probably one of the most controversial topics I could have picked. Based on my nature, and that is dating and what dating is like in the virtual world. So some of the more eagle-eyed people have noticed that there's nothing significant in this corner. Usually I've got like a little football boots, I'm talking about football or something going on. Today I've just got some Kirkland signature classic water. That's because everyone knows the most important part of dating and life is drinking a lot of water. Also, this video is sponsored by the like button. So if you've enjoyed it so far, if you enjoyed the series, don't forget to smash the like button for the algorithm. Let's see how far we can take this Opinion Corner series. This week, for the first time ever, well, to be fair, I've always kind of had like a loose script, but this time I actually have something of a script, because the more I sat down and thought about it, the more information I came up with, and the more things that I felt needed to be explained in a better way. So I have something of a script here. So if you see me looking to the side, it's obviously because I'm referencing the script. It's not actually a script, it's just bullet points. Again, I mean, I said it was more than bullet points last time. It always is just bullet points. I don't know what I'm doing. But before we go off into the content of this video, I want to address, like, I guess the reason why I'm doing it, where this idea came from. So as I said, some of the more eagle-eyed people first would have noticed that there was nothing significant in this corner. And secondly, if you were subscribed to me from day one, if you're someone who like followed my channel when I first started it back in 2017, you'd know that literally the vast majority of my earliest videos were to do with dating, relationships. None of them were like, I don't think they were toxic. Maybe someone come back to me on that one. Go back to my earlier stuff and come back to me on that one. But the reasoning for that was because I was always like the first in my group to do things, at least in my opinion. Maybe they might disagree with me, but like I was in a relationship for the longest time in school, and people always asked me questions about it. And at the time I was like, instead of me answering every single question one by one, let me just make some videos and then send, you know, if you ask me that question again, I'm going to send you this so you know what to do. Either that, or I'm going to like memorize the scripts and well enough to give you an actual well thought out answer, instead of like always being on the spot when people ask me questions about stuff. So that's kind of why I started the channel in the first place. That's one of the plethora of reasons why I started. And yeah, if you go back, you can see those videos. But obviously I stopped doing that because I thought they were kind of moist. And what I learned, or what I observed at least over lockdown, is everything, including dating, everything, you know, relationship building, work, university, everything shifted from in-person, you know, traditional way of doing things to virtual. You know, the internet really took a fat W in 2020. And what was especially interesting to me was that literally all my boys, all my girls, everyone that I knew at bar Ash is like this suddenly got cuffed out of nowhere. Everyone's having kids, getting married, boyfriend, girlfriend, situationship, dating 101, going to Benihana, all these nice places. I'm like, mate, I'm just here behind my desk making videos for the internet. Like, what am I doing wrong? 3 years ago, I was like on top of the world. I knew exactly what I was doing. Like, charisma, haha, funny guy, yeah, Jordan, ha. Now it's like, oh, you do videos, okay. Oh, you got a podcast, nice, yeah, haha, yeah. And everyone's doing their own thing. So that's pretty funny. Obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I have definitely observed that a lot of my mates, people with my circles, have, if not in a relationship now, they've at least diversified their, you know, romantic and sexual experiences, which is something that I find interesting, and it's something that I feel the need to comment on because I'm a bad person. So before I give, I guess, my take, you know, my specific individual thoughts on the new, you know, what we call the new climate, I guess, new dating or something, let me first highlight that this basically, all the bullet points that I said I had was just defining traditional dating and virtual dating. There's actually not much different here. So I still need to get better at scripting things, but let's get into it. So some of the points I have for traditional dating, you know, some of the things that are different, is that obviously it's in person and it's strongly based on like values and charisma. The reason why I put that, I think, was because when you're traditional dating back in the day, it's like you're meeting people not from the internet, right? You're meeting them from school, from work, you know, from your own communities. Any person you meet, maybe either you meet them yourself in the class or in your, you know, in your job, or maybe your friends give you like a blind date or recommend, oh, you should hang out with this person, or maybe it's like a party, you go to the club and you meet someone there that you, again, typically you already have some sort of rapport with, either within your community. Maybe you're just known as that guy who, oh, you know, that's, oh, Jordan, he's, you know, went to Bristol. Or maybe you're just like someone, maybe it's a bad reputation, maybe you like bullied someone in school and they know you from that, but at least they have some available information at hand. You know, you're not just some random person from the internet. They have some sort of rapport with you, or if they don't already know you, there's generally some sort of way they can get that information through like a mutual friend, or through like a mutual friend of a friend. Sometimes it's a bit, you know, more connections in the, you know, more nodes in the network, as an engineering student would say. But generally, back in the day, you know, traditional dating, at least from my experience, I mean, I'm only 23. It's not like I've been dating for hundreds of years. But when I was younger, it was more value based. It was more charisma based. It was more, you know me from him or from her or from the see me around school, see me around lectures, see me around my weekend job at New Look. Like, you know of me already, so there's no need for me to put on this act. You already know what you're you kind of know what you're gonna get, and that idea of basic charisma, like, they basically have an understanding of who you are, and once you make that move, there's not much different you can do other than obviously being more direct instead of indirect. But that's kind of it. You already have that value. I said, yeah, you already have that rapport, and you're going off more information. Yeah, like, your friends in many ways can act as a reference. So, like, your friends, family, colleagues, other students. You just call other students colleagues as well. I don't know. People that share the institution, they can act as like a reference. They say, oh yeah, he's good at this, he's bad at this, and information is there for people to make that decision for you. The one thing that I noted here though is that it can be difficult to set up in advance. What I mean by that is, when you're traditional, I'm assuming that you don't have any or limited virtual communication beforehand. Maybe like an odd text here and there to confirm dates and stuff. But it's not like you're setting things up. One thing that I like doing at the moment, I'm going to say that I'm not actively dating. I have like none of the apps. I'm not talking to anyone right now. I've got no things at the moment. But one thing that I like doing even with just people in general, if I'm just like going for lunch with someone, you like to set up things in advance. And what I mean by that is, instead of just saying, oh, let's go for lunch, you say, look, you pick the restaurant, and if I don't like it, then you pay. If I do like it, then I'll buy drinks next time. And that's like a setup. You know, you're leading into a day two. You're assuming there's going to be a second lunch, second date or whatever. That's something that I never really knew how. Maybe that's just me personally, that I didn't know how to do that when I was younger. But if you're already seeing someone in school, you just say, oh, do you want to hang out on the weekend? You can't really then go and set up another. I don't know, maybe I just didn't know what I was doing when I was 16 years old. But it's definitely quite interesting to observe that now in virtual dating, which is a good segue, because when you are dating virtually, there's no preliminary report, you know, there's no like scout report, there's no, I mean, technically you can go onto like Instagram. I know my friends do that a lot. They send me a random URL, like, oh, check this girl out for me so I can, like, before I swipe right. I'm like, what are you doing? You have all the information you need on Tinder. You don't need to send me their Instagram. But yeah, people like doing a bit of research beforehand so they know what they're getting into to some extent. But generally, it's quite difficult to have that rapport with someone that because you don't know them. They're completely random. Of course, sometimes, you know, here I'm at uni, so you're matching with generally other uni students. And sometimes you do have mutual friends. Maybe you know them from accommodation or from your course or from your friend's course or something. So sometimes those lines are a bit blurred. It is still kind of, you know, like a hybrid dating style. But generally, it's like completely random. And to me, I think that's crazy, like, because there's literally no information to go on. Well, there is some, again, Instagram and stuff, but it's a lot less information. It's based purely on perception, you know, perceived value. How can you market yourself versus the actual value, actual charisma that has been developed in real time, in real life. I guess it works for some people because it allows you to reimagine yourself. You can create this online persona, this character, that either they're not you at all, which is going to be difficult to convert, you know, to convert that in real life, or someone who maybe is more akin to like your actual identity, but in real life maybe your reputation precedes you because of your social circle, whatever. So it depends on how you want to perceive that, how you act online. It can go either way. It can be either more you than you think you are, or less you than you think you are, or this image, this fakeness. But it's definitely more about how that's perceived, and how you market that versus how you actually are in real life, which is something I find interesting. I've never known how to like create the perfect sequence of pictures and like the perfect biography for people to get me for me, not just me for the joke that I put in the caption. Again, I'm not actually on anything at the moment. I always kind of just do it for a week to collect data. I said this to my friends. Like, I'm always curious, like, as to see what works, what doesn't work. Not to say that everything works in general. Not to say all girls are the same, by no means. But of course, again, data. You want to see how many ones and zeros you get. If I start. the last time I was on Tinder, I put like I'm happy we met, but I translated it to French, just to see. I was like, maybe French just works better. Let's just see what happens. And to my surprise, it didn't. I mean, you know what? I think it actually did work better. I got more responses, but less like conversions. I didn't like go and see many people. Maybe that's because it was lockdown. Maybe because I didn't actually try it. I kind of just aired it after that first message. But yeah, every now and then I just try and experiment. I'm just always curious. But yeah, that kind of worked a charm. I've just never really known what I'm doing, and the more data I get, the harder it is to decide like what actually works. Especially with lockdown and no lockdown and tier systems, and there are so many other macroeconomic, bigger picture things going on outside that it's difficult to even correlate the data, let alone use it as as anything, as a pattern. So that's interesting. But going back, off my tangent back onto virtual dating, I mentioned how availability and text the game is paramount. What I mean by that is you have to, if you don't, I don't actually have any data to back this up, but I feel like obviously girls get far more matches than guys. And I assume a lot of guys are just boring to say that there's hey or some stupid toxic comment. But generally speaking, in real life, if you're going to the same class as this person without, the internet interfering, you probably have like that whole term, if not, maybe not the whole academic year, that's a bit generous, but you probably have at least a solid term to like figure yourself out, talk to this girl, get your stuff going. Online, you probably have about a week. Availability is so important. If you get in, the second you match, you have to strike while the iron's hot. Get that all sorted out. And text game is so important. You can't afford to again be boring and say, hey, you need to go in there, strike while the iron's hot. You need to have a finesse shot, top bins. You need to know what you're doing, because if you fumble those first few messages, it's it's probably impossible to recover from that, because once you get aired, it's hard to unair yourself. So that's something that that's worth thinking about. Beyond that, I mentioned like it's virtual, so charisma is hard to quantify through a profile and pictures. I don't actually know if that's true. In my opinion, that's like I've found that every single time. I've always found it difficult, as I said, to convey like my personality, my character through a sequence of pictures and a biography. But a lot of my friends say that it's the opposite. Like, I guess maybe the way I'm perceiving it is like, because I only got on there for like a week, 2 weeks, just to see what happens. I don't develop that profile. Maybe the best way to interpret that is that when you first build your account, that's like a draft, and you're consistently improving that, adding new pictures, improving your bio, changing this, changing that based on the results you get. So maybe that's a better analytical approach, where if every single person you message references this one line in your bio, like, oh, you play basketball, maybe then you want to put that basketball line higher up in your profile, and put other stuff lower down. Or maybe someone references one picture where you're in Singapore or something. They're like, oh, you have to travel. You say, okay, maybe I'm going to put the Singapore picture first, put this other one at the end, and you shuffle things about, add new stuff, take things away based on the reception you get. That's probably a better analytical approach to do it, instead of just deleting after a week and saying, yeah, French works. But yeah, I definitely think there's objectively a significance to, the pictures you put up, the bio you put up. Is that it? That's basically the only two. That's literally it. When I'm talking about less information online versus traditional dating, there literally is less information. Like, you have a picture and you have a couple of words and like your height. I think most guys, at least me, well, I mean, I don't know what people. I don't really look at guys' profiles. My profile was like 5'8", London or Bristol, and I had like my nationality flags, like the Guyanese flag and the Seychelles flag, and then underneath I was like, I can't remember, like part-time engineer. Something that I thought was funny in my head, but wasn't actually all that funny. Actually, no, I was like sometimes a nice guy, arguably a funny guy, regrettably an engineer at UOB. Like, I'm laughing at that, but not comedically. It's like a ha. So I can't imagine maybe that's what. Anyway, moving on so that's kind of like me defining what the two type of dating styles are. There's some of the similarities and differences, at least in my perspective of my handful of years as a single man in this world. How long have I been actively dating for? Probably like a year and a half. Maybe not even a year and a half. Maybe like the odd week here and there. But yeah, here's kind of my take. So I took like a brief pause on the recording to like write down some takeaways. I can go on all day, so let me just I thought this would be a nice way to like clarify a few things. So I think my take, what's most important, I think, is, well, actually, I'm going to say the most important thing last. You know what? I'm breaking YouTube's zero rule, and I'm going to say first and foremost, my key takeaway from all of this is that dating still, no matter how much dating changes and evolves and gets harder, easier, like there are several articles, I've got some up in front of me actually, from Psychology Today, why so many young people are having no sex, Healthline, accept cookies, why young adults, especially men, are having sex less frequently, The Atlantic, do not accept cookies, get out of here, why are young people having so little sex? And I think the objective fact, I think, is that the scene has just changed in so many ways. Like you can no longer just ask a friend to set you up with their friend. You have to be more active online, and that's something that's very, very difficult for most people. Like if you don't know how to adapt to that, you're gonna be left behind, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm gonna put these articles up on the screen so you guys would have seen it now anyway. But it's like, what I'm saying here isn't just me saying it, even though this is opinion corner, and yes, if you have your own opinions, take them down to your own call number in the comments, blah blah blah. But this actually is a real thing. People actually are struggling. I don't think I'm struggling. I don't think I'm trying to find people in a way and failing for me to say that that I'm struggling. But I've definitely observed, like, I see less people now, not just because of COVID, but in general. Like you just see less people out and about. You don't really. There's a lot of fear as well. I feel like back in the day you could talk to someone at work, in school, whatever. But now you're always work conscious, wary of, like, not sexual assault per se, but you don't want to be like perceived as someone who's harassing someone. Your job could be on the line if you mess this up. If you don't know how to approach a girl and you do it wrong until you feel uncomfortable, that could literally be your career in the bin. So I think a lot of people are, not only are they scared, but they just don't know, again, how to adapt to the virtual world. I've seen a lot of guys sending like stupid messages, as I said, like more like toxic leaning stuff, or just a generic hey, which is, it's sad. I do feel like people can be coached out of that, and it's not to say that, not like Hitch or none of that stuff. There's no like well, there probably is a dating school, but these things, you don't need to be bad at it. You can just improve your game, and I think a lot of that comes down to maybe just experience. Maybe the more you talk to people and you recognize patterns, like, maybe just saying hey doesn't work, and you wanna improve on that. But anyway, my key takeaways are, what I was going to say that I didn't end up saying, is that dating, no matter how much it changes, no matter how much harder it gets, or how much more or less sex you're having, dating still doesn't matter. It's still irrelevant. Relationships are still always going to be, at least in my head, a side mission. It's not your life. Finding the one isn't your life goal. If you want to be motivated by relationships and happy families and that's more power to you. But please remember, every single person out there, please remember that the idea is to be strong on your own. You don't want to rely on someone else. It's going to be hard to find someone when you need someone. My perspective is I don't want to be like looking for love. I want to find the one like by chance, by doing my own thing. I don't want to be out here looking, scouting out. She's got 5 pictures that I like. That whole thing doesn't make any sense. And I've always said this to my friends, like, the amount of time you spend on Tinder, on Hinge, on Bumble, on Shape, or whatever it's called, swiping, you could be doing literally anything else. The amount of time I spent on this, how long has this been going? This has been going on for 18 minutes, yeah. I could have matched a couple of girls. I could have downloaded the app, matched a couple of girls by now. But I would much rather sit here and do, this feels productive, this feels valuable, it feels like I'm probably being a little bit toxic, but this just feels like a better thing to do. And yeah, dating, while I appreciate and I understand people want, the happy family thing, relationship goals, I get it, I appreciate that, I understand it, but I encourage everyone, if you're watching this because you want to learn more about dating, you don't want to know more about dating, just enjoy your life. Go outside, kick a ball, figure some things out as you get older, but there's no rush to figure these things out. Maybe, I get it, maybe for a woman there is a bit of a biological clock where you kind of have to have kids by a certain age. But I'm a man. I don't relate to that. I can't talk to women about that, so that's not my experience. So for all the guys out there, just relax. Just chill. And now let's talk about now why you shouldn't be chill. So here are my other takeaways. At first I wrote down that it was harder for most people. Now that I've kind of thought about it, I don't think it's harder. I think it's just different. And the reason why I say it's different is because for it to be harder, that would imply that what I was saying earlier was false, I guess. So what I was trying to say earlier is that the reason why I don't think it's harder for me is because I'm not trying and failing. I've like messaged a few people here and there in the past, and I've went on dates, and you do what you do, but there's never any. I never felt like I failed in that case because I kind of got what I wanted. I went out, I had a good time. That's it. I never expected to be in a relationship. I never expected to come back to my flat. I never expected to do all these other things, so it's fine. That's why I don't think it's harder per se. Because if you want to see people, you can do that. If you want to hook up, you can do that. The reason why I say it's different is because back in the day, you could be like the best looking guy in school. You do all the sports. You're good at maths. You're getting all these awards, and you can probably date like one person from your class because that's kind of how school works. Maybe more in certain schools. Maybe you can afford to like to mess around in different groups. My school never really. I don't think my school had that sort of flexibility where you could do that within different groups. You were kind of seen as that would kind of tarnish your reputation in many ways. But you can probably find like, I don't know, maybe like 3 people at max within your school or your own local communities before you start being known as that person. On the internet, you can technically like Tinder dating nowadays is scalable in the same way as a business is, literally through the power of the internet. You can meet a new person every day. You can go on a date 3 times a day for 7 days a week. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like you can actually do that now through the power of the internet, and that's why I don't think it's harder. I think it's just different. And once you adapt your style, once you figure out how to market your game in a way that's actually maybe not attainable, but in a way that actually works instead of just having game, because what that also means is that you don't actually need to be cool or good at sports or fit or anything. All you need to do is sell that, sell that dream to someone. And yes, maybe that's a bit disingenuous because you will need to maintain that in real life. Like catfishing is a real thing. If you sell someone a dream, it's going to be harder to maintain and convert that in real life when you actually see them in person. But that doesn't mean that's impossible. You can definitely figure some things out in real life. And that's why, again, I still think it's different, not harder. And once you adapt to the new game, once you figure out how to sequence your pictures and have your bios and what texts work, what texts don't work, and what people to match with, and I don't know, what approach you take. Maybe some people just swipe right on everyone. Maybe you're more selective. Maybe you don't even use the internet at all. Maybe you just sign up to some yoga classes, cooking classes, singing classes, and just meet people the traditional way as well. Whatever that may be, just the game isn't much harder. It's just different, and you've got to change your approach. That's kind of my perspective on it. So I've got a lot of other, key takeaways here, but I kind of summed them all up in that little rant I just went on. But it's like one of the key takeaways is abundance. Learning how to market and have your rep precede you instead of having to show that on day one. What I mean by abundance is, again, like back in the day you can only go on 1 or 3 dates in school. Now you can literally meet everyone on the internet. So you got to figure out, I guess, how to have a bigger basket. Like if you interpret it like this, this is the way I perceive opportunities just in general. But you can convert it. You can follow the same logic in this circumstance. But I would always say, like, the reason why I started this podcast, for example, is because opportunities are like rain. They always come out from the sky. And what you want to do is have as many pots out in the rain as humanly possible. You can even perceive that the same way when it comes to women and dating, or men and dating, if you're a girl watching the show, or if you're a gay man watching the show. There are women falling from the sky everywhere. And you want to have as many baskets out to catch as many of these as possible. And if that can be a Tinder hat out there, Hinge hat out there, cooking class, math class, all these different hats everywhere, catching as many ranges as possible. And the idea is, yes, you can either have loads of baskets out, or you can have one basket and just make it like the most attractive basket, a massive, huge container, silo filled, like improving your funnel. And that's just the way to have an abundance. Because obviously, in a world where everyone's online, and if you're the one person who's not online, not going to these classes, you're going to be seeing less people in general. No wonder you're going on less dates, you're seeing less people, because you just literally have less people in your life. If you have a bigger funnel, you have more people around, more options, you can afford to be more selective. That's an easier way to just feel more satisfied, let alone actually going out on these dates and doing these things. Like, just have more friends. Get more friends, get more people in your life, and you'll be chill. I put first impressions are far more important than reputation. What that literally means is, it literally means what it means, right? First impressions are now very, very valuable. If you're in school and people already kind of know who you are, you already have that reputation, there's nothing much you can do. You can have a different first impression so people see you a bit differently. Maybe it's like, but in school you're just this guy, but now you're a different guy. I don't know, maybe just wear bigger shoes, or you're a bit more polite when you're on a date. But first impressions do matter in traditional dating as well, but they're far more important now, I think, because online, the impression you make online is purely, maybe you do like FaceTimes in advance, or you send voice notes so they know what you sound like, and you have like a bit of physicality going into it. But generally, if you're just texting and you have no idea what this person looks like, no idea what they sound like, it can be very, very strange, if you don't pull that off right. I've actually seen a girl from Tinder not long ago, and I was like, I swear you were taller online. I've seen people from Zoom calls, like from Zoom classes, from like group tasks. I'm like, yeah, let's go to the library and work on this project. I'm like, I swear you didn't sound like that. I swear you were taller. And it's like that's something that's important. Maybe I mean height doesn't really matter that much. I guess to some girls apparently it does. But yeah, just having that first impression, like charisma, even though you don't necessarily need it online anymore, you still should have. You kind of need it to some extent when you first meet up, because that first impression, once you first meet that person, you're going to need to have something going on. You can't just fake it all online. Maybe you can. I've never tried. Maybe you can just fake it online and just pull it off and pull it out of the bag on the day out of nowhere. But I imagine you still need some of the traditional, good human qualities, even now in the virtual world, because you still have to come offline at some point. And yeah, I mean, I still have loads of takeaways, but I think I just kind of explained them all at length. I kind of wrote them down so I can talk about them methodically. It never actually happened. The one final thing that I guess I didn't talk about at length that I can mention is that online enables you to set the scene and create a character if you know how. Like, set the scene, create a character. Set the scene, i.e., if you're just going out for a date, like, what does it mean to be on a date per se? Like, if you're just going to the cinema or like for dinner or like an actual activity, which is way more fun. I always recommend going on an activity, guys. Activities, IKEA, whatever it may be, something fun is just way better. Walking and talking, cycling, whatever. Do that. Bowling. No more cinemas and movies. No more movies and meals. We don't do that anymore. But it allows you to set the scene in the sense that if you're texting in advance, you can start playing these innuendos, start playing these games, being a bit more flirtatious, kind of setting a scene so they kind of know what they're getting into before they get there. And again, you can create a character by saying that, I'll take you out, I'll do this, I'll do that. And you make yourself be someone else online. That's something that to be fair, I've never actually thought about that. I've never said it out loud nor to think like, do I do that? I feel like I've always been quite good at setting a scene. I feel like people generally know what they're getting into when they see me, not just in a dating circumstance, but in general. I'm quite direct. Like, look, we're doing this project, or we're going for coffee. I don't drink coffee. We're going for hot chocolate with marshmallows. We're doing this, we're doing that. I've always been quite direct, but I do feel like online allows you to be more imaginative, because if you're in person and you're just saying, do you want to hang out on the weekend? Yes, and you kind of finalize details and you kind of leave it as it is, at least in my experience. I feel like online, because you're always talking, always in communication, from the second you say let's hang out to the second you actually hang out, you're probably talking that whole period. There's no like sitting on the bus with headphones on thinking, what if I say the wrong thing? It's like, I'm on the way, 5 minutes away, send a meme, send an emoji, this, that, the other. Like, you're always in communication, and again, that allows you to create this immersive kind of. You can set the scene, you can create a stage and create a character, which is cool if you know how to do it. I don't necessarily think that's the best approach. You should always just kind of let bygones be bygones. I like spontaneity and being spontaneous, but it's something that people can do. So yeah, my key takeaway basically, if I have time for it, I have a minute left before this camera times out after 30 minutes. But all I got to say on dating is that it's different now. But that's it. I mean, it's not much harder. It's just different. If it's something you genuinely care about, if you're genuinely looking, for love right now, it's cold at night, I get it, then learn the new game. That's all I can say. There's nothing more going on other than understanding that the climate has changed, and most importantly, work on yourself. Like, if you're not meeting people that you want to be meeting, you can go out and blame people. You can say, but I read this article on Psychology Today that people having less sex, so it's not my fault. It's not entirely your fault, but it's still partially your fault. You can't just default all blame because of statistics. If you'll just be happier, go outside, kick a ball, and then let me know how you feel. Find a corner down below the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. But just relax, relax, people. Dating is important. I think I understand the value of like family building and love and relationships, and I do think people should figure this stuff out. There's nothing wrong with online dating. I used to have this perception. I was like, I don't want to meet a girl online. How am I going to explain it to my parents? But it's a bit of an archaic view. At the end of the day, like, if you're still meeting people, you still have that offline phase eventually. It's just how you kind of get through that door. So the whole like taboo of like, we met on Tinder, I don't really follow that anymore. But I would always say, you should never look for something if you need it. You don't want to be finding a girl while you need to find a girl, because it just creates a power dynamic that doesn't really work for me. I'm not going to go off at length for this. I'm not a psychologist or a dating coach, but just chill. Just chill. And with that said, thank you for watching. Thank you for the premiere of season 2 of the Opinion Corner. Let's tackle some more controversial stuff tomorrow. Peace.